What's up, fellas? In the second video of the day, we're going to be talking about the Aaron Gordon trade from the Orlando Magic to the Denver Nuggets. Earlier today, we talked about Nikola Vucevic going to Chicago. This was the other big move for Orlando yesterday, and a really interesting deal. I think you can make a case that this is an absolute win-win for both sides. I'll get into it a little bit throughout the video. I'll get into the grades and stuff like that, but that's what we're going to be talking about in the second video of the day. But really quickly, before we get started, if you're new here, what's up? My name is Tucker. I upload NBA content on this channel twice a day, every single day. So it's the most consistent NBA content on YouTube, so consider subscribing. You can also leave a like rating on the video as well, and you can check me out at various socials in a Linktree link down in the description below to hang out with me outside of these videos. With those things said, let's talk about Aaron Gordon. Let's talk about the Orlando Magic and the Denver Nuggets. So it became pretty clear over the last couple of days that Aaron Gordon was going to be moved. There were even reports that he requested a trade, that he was starting to go back on the request. Rumors all over the place, but it was pretty clear Aaron Gordon was not going to be a member of the Magic as of today. And this is a guy that's been in, some trade rumors throughout his career, and these finally felt like the most legitimate. It felt like the correct time for Orlando to move on. He's not a bad player. He certainly had an interesting time in Orlando between, being completely put in the wrong position for his first couple of years to having a nice little breakout season to now kind of settling right where he is right now, which is a nice player that can do a lot of things for you as a nice, well-rounded guy, but Orlando ultimately was asking him to do too much offensively. And in a different situation, as I made the case for leading up to the deadline, I think he could be infinitely better than the version we saw in Orlando once he's allowed to do all the other stuff that he's really good at and not just having to score the ball all the time. And ultimately, we're going to see if that is actually the case as he is now in Denver. Here's the actual trade. The Nuggets get Aaron Gordon and Gary Clark, and the Magic get a trade package that we've seen, 100 times over the last couple of months from Denver. It's Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a future pick. This one being a 2025 Denver first-round pick, top 5 protected. That protection rolls over for the following 2 seasons as well. So if it is protected in 2025, then that top 5 protection will still exist in 26 and then 27 as well if it once again rolls over. So we'll talk about this first for Denver, and then we'll go to Orlando. So, like I said, any trade that Denver made, whether it be for Victor Oladipo, whether it be for Aaron Gordon, was going to be this kind of structure, right? The Gary Harris contract fit really nicely in any kind of trade. Gary Harris is a guy that if you're someone like Orlando, you can kind of convince yourself is still worth trading for. RJ Hampton is a guy that just picked someone that has a lot of talent, slipped in the draft a little bit, and then a future pick. Always was going to be the framework. For Denver, my issue is not with the addition itself. I think Aaron Gordon in Denver is a really good fit. I think he fits, people are going to make this comparison all the time. I think he fits pretty well into the Jeremy Grant slot there in the 4. I think he's a better offensive player than Jeremy Grant was in his time in Denver, but maybe not quite as good defensively. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. But he fits pretty well alongside Jokic and Jamal Murray, and those 3 guys are going to be really good. I think it's certainly a ceiling raiser and potentially the missing piece for Denver, especially if he's really good defensively and can maybe even play some at the 5. I think it's going to be great for Gordon himself to A, be on a better team, to B, be on a better team, to be on a team with better spacing, and C, to be on a team in which he can utilize all of his skills rather than being relied on to do a ton of stuff offensively. My concern here is twofold. One, I understand that Jeremy Grant wanted to go to Detroit, wanted to have a bigger offensive role, and ultimately they offered him the same contract that he ended up accepting, and they just couldn't retain him because he didn't want to stay there. But Aaron Gordon's making basically the same amount of money, and they had to give up assets to get him when they could have just retained Jeremy Grant if they bumped their offer up a little bit. I don't know how realistic it would have been for them to actually retain him if he just really wanted to go somewhere else and, be the offensive focal point somewhere. So that's a bit of a concern that they gave up assets for a guy that they could have just re-signed. Now, the other part of this that's a concern for me personally is the fact that you're giving up Gary Harris, because Denver's already a team that has had its struggles in the past as well as this season defensively at times. The trade structure was always going to be this. Gary Harris was always going to be kind of the guy that ended up getting moved. But when they made the move for Aaron Gordon, I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe this is the Oladipo team. Maybe there's another move potentially out there, because initially when this was reported, there were conversations around the fact that maybe Will Barton was involved, and then the trade came out, Will Barton wasn't involved. So it's like, okay, maybe there's a 3-team structure we're not aware of yet. Will Barton's going to go somewhere. They're going to get someone like Oladipo. That ended up not being the case. So even though I like the Aaron Gordon upgrade, I think he could be the missing piece for this Denver team to be a true contender at the top of the West. Will Barton is the long-term, or at least for this season, backcourt partner alongside Jamal Murray, is a real issue for me, especially defensively. Now, the lineup of Jamal Murray, Will Barton, a guy who's wanted to start anyway, Michael Porter Jr., assuming he can actually play, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic looks really, really good, especially offensively, but I'm not sure, apart from Gordon, who, the B or B plus level defender is amongst that group. That would make me very, very nervous if I was a Nuggets fan. It's like, yes, I'm glad we made this addition. I like the move, but like, how are we supposed to be able to guard? Not that Gary Harris was like, the guy that held the entire defense together, but when you're replacing him with Will Barton, there's going to be a drop off there. And that would make me nervous, and why I was a little bit confused as to why there wasn't another move here involved after they made the Gordon trade. Having said all those things, I love the fit. I love the addition. I actually don't think they gave up a ton. RJ Hampton's fine. A 2025 pick doesn't really impact them right now. And then Gary Harris, apart from the fact that he's a good defender, isn't a huge, huge deal for them. So I'm going to give them an A for this deal. I think Aaron Gordon is a really good addition for them. And I like the fact that he is now in Denver amongst a lot of other teams that were reportedly bidding for trading for Aaron Gordon. Now, for Orlando, the trade, the analysis here is going to be pretty similar to what it was for the Vucevic trade. I love the fact that they were aggressive in going out to get assets yesterday. They turned Nikola Vucevic, Aaron Gordon, and Evan Fournier into, Otto Porter, Wendell Carter Jr., 2 Chicago picks, a Denver pick, RJ Hampton, Gary Harris, and 2 seconds. And then when you add that to having Isaac and Fultz, then what everything Cole Anthony can be, I think all those are good moves. I'm going to go and say I think this is an A grade for Denver. Gary Harris, worst case, is an expiring contract next season that will be movable. If you get to the point next year in your Orlando and your team's playing well and Isaac and Fultz come back well, the young guys are playing well, you can easily look at the Gary Harris contract and a pick as a way to upgrade your roster, right? Or maybe he starts playing better for you and he's a guy that you want to retain because he is still, pretty young. I don't think that he is just a complete sunk cost here for Orlando. I think they're planning on playing him, potentially reviving his career, and he's someone that I think could be a real asset down the road, whether it be from a salary perspective or on the court. RJ Hampton is a really interesting guy. Opinions on him are all over the place, and typically if Denver picks you, especially in the first round, you're going to end up being at least a half-decent player. He's going to get the opportunity to in Orlando. When you look at this roster now, like I'm glad they traded guys, but this roster is, like, in terms of the guys that are healthy, is probably the worst roster in the league. I mean, we're looking at a lot of Cole Anthony, a lot of RJ Hampton, a lot of Wendell Carter Jr., a lot of Terrence Ross. Terrence Ross might average 25 a game the rest of the way. So on one hand, it's like, it's kind of rough for their fans. But on the other, guys like RJ Hampton, guys like Cole Anthony are going to get plenty of opportunities to develop and be evaluated throughout the rest of the season. And then you'll bring in some more talent in the offseason and kind of go from there. And then that future pick that doesn't really matter for Denver right now. Denver's like, we don't care about 2025. We're trying to be good right now. But you never really know what can happen. You know what I mean? Especially with teams that are not huge market teams. And 2025 is a long way away. And a top 5 protection is not a lot. If you're an Orlando team that is kind of holding on to this pick. So long term, that could end up being something at least relatively nice for Orlando. I love the fact that they not only got assets yesterday, whether it be second round picks, first round picks, young players, but they also were able to move some salary, opens up a ton of flexibility for them. They've got Isaac and Fultz signed to long-term deals. Pretty much everybody else is either a rookie contract or Terrence Ross or a couple of other random veterans on the roster. Tons more salary flexibility if they did want to go out and make a restricted offer this offseason to someone like Lauri Markkanen, or I was going to say Jared Allen, but they've already got plenty of bigs. Guys like Lonzo Ball, right? Like they're going to have money now to where they could go out and make restricted offers if they wanted to. So much more flexibility in Orlando. This is something that I look at with the multitude of trades Orlando made yesterday, where I look at it, I'm thinking, if I was there and I was in charge, these are things that I would probably take a look at and I would do. It's unfortunate that Gordon didn't become what a lot of people thought that he would be when he entered the league, which was like Blake Griffin light. A lot of people were excited about Aaron Gordon, and whether it be a development thing, whether it be playing out of position, or just not ultimately being as good as people thought that he would be, he never quite reached the ceiling people had for him. Still is a nice player. That's why they got good value in exchange for him. But ultimately, we're looking at the overall look for Orlando yesterday. It's an absolute W. I think, I graded the Vucevic trade an A+ earlier. I think this trade is an A. And then, Fournier getting 2 seconds for him, but, at least it's value. It's someone that you're not really concerned about keeping on the roster anyway. And then for Denver, who knows? Maybe this is the piece. I mean, it's pretty clear that they were struggling to find an option at the 4 that worked in their lineup. Michael Porter Jr. was playing some of the 4, but defensively, it just wasn't helping them as much as they needed. Having another option there in Gordon, and as well as a guy that could potentially go super small and play the 5 with Porter Jr., just a ton more versatility and flexibility there. It's one of the reasons why Gordon was such a popular guy on the trade market. Denver ended up getting him, and we'll be, I'll be interested to see kind of what that looks like now here moving forward. Lots of different, teams to look at now that have a different roster now than they did at this time yesterday. And it's going to be super cool to kind of see how all that stuff develops. I'll get into some more trade deadline stuff, obviously, over the next couple of days, but I wanted to get in the Gordon and Vucevic stuff here today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, you can leave a like rating down below. You can check out more videos from me. The box is on screen. And you can check me out at various socials and a Linktree link down in the description below. With all this thing said, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.